Lev, it's great to see you today.
Thank you for having me, Jay.
Lev, you played a key role in the 2016 scandal where the incoming Trump administration decided that it wished to use Ukraine for domestic political purposes in the US, including trying to find out information about Burisma Energy and Hunter Biden in order to discredit now President Biden. What do you think about what's going on now in Congress? They might impeach the president because of this Burisma allegations. Is it worth it?
If it wasn't as serious as it was, it'd be hilarious. No, absolutely not. And that is one of the reasons why I've been so vocal. One of the reasons I wrote my book, Shadow Diplomacy, is because I want to get the whole truth out, what actually transpired by being Trump's guy on the ground. And I was the actual person that did all of the messages, did all of the translations on behalf of Team Trump and with the incoming presidency of Zelensky, and prior to him, even when Poroshenko was still in office, which a lot of people don't know. The pressure started with Poroshenko that then led into Zelensky.
What were you doing exactly? What was your role in Ukraine?
My role was to dig up as much dirt as I can on Joe and Hunter Biden, but that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was to force the Ukrainian president to announce an investigation. Not doing it. And this is the whole key, Jay. They never wanted Ukraine to actually do an investigation because they don't trust the Ukrainian officials to come out with a true investigation. All they wanted was an announcement, and that's all they needed for Trump to then be able to win in 2020. So the whole game plan was to put enough pressure on the incoming president to be able to announce an investigation into Joe and Hunter Biden, to be able to then have some sort of relationship with the United States.
You were around Rudy Giuliani almost every single day. Did you ever hear him say anything about selling pardons? Is there any truth to that rumor?
I mean, I wasn't never actually there when he cut a deal, but I was around him every day, and he would make comments constantly to me and other close people around him that if you know anybody that's in trouble or that needs a pardon, have them come see me, and for the right price, I could get it done. So he constantly made comments like that. Later on, I heard a story that there was a congressman, Hunter Duncan, out of California, that he was Rudy was involved with getting his pardon done. So I wasn't there, didn't see the money transactions, but you know, when you put 1+1, it equals 2. So I've heard Rudy mention it several times, and now the truth is coming out. Obviously, we're just waiting to see who that actual person was that he took money from.
Was Giuliani aware that he was being used by Russian intelligence?
Oh, 100. Well, let me stop there. I don't think Giuliani would thought that he's being used because if you know Giuliani, Giuliani thinks he's smarter than everybody in the room. So let me put it to you this way. Was he aware that he was dealing with Russian assets? Absolutely. He knew who these people were. He knew who Andrei Derkach was. He knew who Andrei Telezhenko was. He knew where the information was coming from, but it benefited him. So he didn't care where it was coming from. And the other side of Rudy is he thought he's smarter than the other guy and he could use them. Where at the end he was the useful fool that they were using actually, and not him using them.
So, I mean, since you dealt with the inner world of Trump, why is it they seem to have this love of Putin? And what do they really think about Ukrainians?
Well, Trump, you have to really understand how he grew up. I mean, Trump grew up in an authoritarian family. I write a lot about it in my book about exactly where his love for Putin and Kim Jong-un and leaders like Xi, where that love came from. It's You have to understand growing up in the era that Trump grew up and being in the business, not only with an authoritarian father, but being in the construction industry, you had to deal with a lot of shady characters, a lot of mobsters to be able to in that era. So Trump kind of grew up in that, admiring, being a mafia godfather or being a dictator. And that's why if you see him, the praises that Trump only gives is to people like Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, Xi, constantly praising that they're smart, that they're powerful, that they know how to run their countries. You never hear him talking about any of our allies and praising any of our presidents out there. So you could tell that, where his affinity is and how Trump, if he had a second term, how he would want to run his country and turn his country into.
What did Trump and his circle, what do they think about the Ukrainians or Ukraine? Did they care? Or was it just another piece on the chessboard?
Well, that's the whole thing. Ukrainians know Ukrainian officials know, Trump doesn't like Ukraine. Trump never liked. He first never respected Ukraine. If you there was a leaked conversation that me and Trump had where I was talking to him about Ukraine, where he basically didn't understand what kind of fighters they are, and thought that because of his love towards Putin, admiration, he thought that Russia is a lot more powerful and that the Ukrainian people couldn't stand it. So that's his first understanding of Ukraine. But then with all the Russian collusion and everything that transpired during the 2016 election, uh, it was the Russian assets that were pushed him to believe that Ukraine was at fault in all of this, and that it wasn't the Russians, it was really the Ukrainians that try to make it seem like the Russians. So Trump has a hatred towards Ukraine. He blames them. He blames Zelensky for not announcing the investigation to Hunter Joe Biden. So God forbid Trump wins. It would not be good for Ukraine. I mean, we should all pray that Trump never gets to see power again because of his hatred towards Ukraine and after everything that happened.
Do you think there's more schemes of the Trump administration that haven't come out yet?
Absolutely. Well, history will open itself up. There's a lot that transpired in the Trump administration. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, Trump Shadow Diplomacy, because Trump moves a news cycle, media cycle so often that the people don't get a chance to really understand what actually happened in Ukraine, what actually happened in the 4 years. And that's why I wrote, and it's called Shadow Diplomacy, because it wasn't just Ukraine. There was a lot of things that went on in Venezuela, things that went on in Turkey, things that went on in other nations that we don't know about, that never hit the media, that will get divulged soon. But the main thing is to really understand, and what I hope that will come out, is how underhanded and how diabolical Trump, Giuliani, and his cohorts in Congress went an extent to push Ukraine, and they're still with these impeachments that they're doing, with the constant putting. That is why one of the reasons why we have a division in Congress right now of giving money to Ukraine is because of constantly pushing this narrative that Ukrainian people, were corrupt with Joe Biden and the deep state, and pushing that narrative. And it's just constantly, I think it's just a disservice and dishonest to the country, a sovereign country like Ukraine.
So, in all these conspiracies that were going on, what was the role of Andrei Derkach?
Dirkach was one of the leaders in that group. The group that I knew consists of Dirkach, Kulik, and Andrei Telizhenko. Basically, these were people that were told to me through multiple sources in the Ukrainian government that they were Russian assets and working with the Russian authority to try to send disinformation and misinformation to the United States. Relay that to Giuliani and Solomon and the team. They were aware of these people, and that is why, while I was working with Trump and Giuliani until my arrest, I was kind of blocking anything that came out of that group until my arrest, and then that's when Giuliani basically decided that he was going to go full force with his Russian assets, and that's obviously why we are here today. The rest of it.
So, tell me a few words about your new book, Shadow Diplomacy.
It's I think the reader is going to really enjoy the book and really understand and be wowed by what actually transpired and goes on behind closed doors in Washington, D.C. and the White House. This is not a typical book. This is not a typical White House. This is, if I were told, or if any of us saw a movie 10 years or 15 years ago about something like this, we wouldn't believe, we would think it was made up. But it's true. You had a person that took over the White House and ran it like a mobster, like a mafia family. And then you had another person like Rudy Giuliani who wanted to be the Secretary of State, which he never got. And then they formed a shadow diplomacy, a group of people that basically went and did Trump's bidding with different foreign governments to be able to get what he wanted, because people around him, like the actual diplomatic people like Pompeo and Bolton, wouldn't agree to do his dirty work. So I think it's an interesting read. I think it's something that will definitely open up your eyes to a lot of things that you don't know. But the most important thing, it will give you, the reader, a real good understanding of what actually transpired in Ukraine and between the Trump on the ground and everything, to be able to get all the truth out.
Lev, that was really great. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. Hey, anytime. Thank you for having me.